I would highly recommend to people writing a memoir. Uh, Not necessarily to publish it right away. Just write. Just write. Write your thoughts. But I think for me, I started writing diaries, journal, and that's enough. I mean, the younger you start writing journals, the better, because like me, you'll never know you will need it in the later years. Some people say also that memoirs are only for great people, famous artists, singers, politicians. But I think for us, every ordinary people like us, we should write our our memoir. But sadly, in our country, students or children are not trained to write diaries and journals. I think it should be included in the school. We had before in high school writing theme books. I really write. I really like writing, the themes, about how I spent my summer vacation, about this, about my trip to, about that. I think it's good to be trained how to write. And as since history, uh, uh, written history is important to not only great histories for national or international purpose, but history for your own family, so that, like in my case, for my grandchildren and for the next generation of the Noel, at least they know the past. I am so sorry that I cannot tell story about my grandfather on the father's side. For instance, I have no stories about him, and the life of my father was very scanty. I don't know what he did when he was in elementary, when he was a young boy, and I did not bother to ask him, Papa, what you did before. you know for educated people, it's easy because they have records of their diploma, they have records of the schools or employment. But in the case of my father, who did not finish high school, there is no diploma to see. And he works as a mechanic. Uh, what, what kind of achievement do you write about a mechanic? But it is only when I was an adult, when I understand the type of work my father is doing, and I can describe exactly how important the work he was doing. So I hope, really, and I encourage people to write. In my case, it is cathartic. There's so many things in my head. My memories, as if I'm carrying a heavy burden of memories that I have to carry on my shoulder. That I have also said, I have to tell this story, and it is my duty to tell this story. And by writing my memoir, I was able to unload all those heavy memories in me. In fact, I'm feeling better now. I am lightened up. I think I have done the best I can for my friends who died before me, and I was able to tell about what happened. And looking back, the early first chapters of my book, I think I did a good thing to describe about Bansalan, because Bansalan in the 60s is not the same as now, and the younger generation will not even recognize what I wrote. And for people of my generation, I'm sure they will read it with nostalgia, because I wrote about the river, about our schools, about what we did when we were young, when we gadgets, television were not still present, and the only thing what you can do is to play under the moonlight, and that was a great memory that we made. We fetch water 5 kilometers from our houses. Before we can cook, we have to go to the forest to gather firewood. And these are the things that would not be happening now, except probably in the still in the villages. Life is still the same like in the 60s. But for us, I'm the book is really written for memories to keep. So our younger generation in the family, when they ask what I did when I'm already gone, what I did, they can, their parents can tell, read the book of your lola, relative, your auntie, and if there are people about, what do you think is Dansalan about in 1960s? They said, well, there is a book beyond the Balansalan skies that you can read about. But more than that is more on the personal experience, the enriching experience of to be able to write about yourself, about the people you love closest to you. And I am aware that a memoir can carry a vast of subjects. And aside from celebrities, some people write their memoirs about their addiction period, when they were addicted to drugs, or they have problems with the authority, sad experience. That is important, because by writing a memoir, it is cathartic. But I think if you have a happy childhood, if you have a happy youth, I think it is also good to write about, because life is not only full of sadness, but most especially it is also full of happiness that you have just maybe taken care of. Like in my case, I find joy in gathering firewood in the forest. It was a joy to be pushing the car to fetch drinking water. It was a joy to be swimming in the river, not in the swimming pool in an exotic beaches. Those small tiny things that happen in my childhood, that makes happy memories on my part. So what are your memories of the generation to come? The memories is playing game, computer games. Well, what else? What kind memories that can you build up? But I'm sure every generation can write their own memories, whatever it is. Like in my case, I can write about that the technology. I have a hard time, coping up with technology, Zoom meetings, etc. These are really new things, gadgets. But for millennials, these are just ordinary things. So I wonder what they write about 20 years from now, about their experience in technology. So write, just write your diary. If you don't write, you don't need to write a full book right away, but those diary and journals would be a gold mine when you start thinking of writing your own memoir. In my case, so what tool, what do you need? Memories, good memories. Write when your memories are still working. Write everything what you notice, and it's up to you when you start writing your memoir to select what you think would be included in the book. In my case, I wrote everything. I wrote about when I am angry, when I am sad. I wrote about people that I met. I wrote about what I saw. I just wrote everything in my journals. How I felt when I was walking alone, hiking in the countryside. I noticed a pig. I noticed this. I just wrote them in my journals. And they're very simple things. And I thought it was crazy to be writing about inconsequential things, I mean. But now I realized that I was observant. I noticed how people work, and wrote about it, how I interact with other people. I mean, I arrive at home, I write about how I felt after meeting such a person. So that was my diary. Aside from mentioning about dates, I mentioned about what happened during the day, how I felt, why I was happy, why I was angry. The angrier I am, the sadder I am, the more I can write about it. Because I was the type of person that if I am sad, I don't like to talk about it. So instead of talking about it with somebody else, I write down my feelings, my emotions, my sadness, and I describe why I was sad. Example. And then the journals just pile up. And then today, 2021, I decided to write my memoir. I just opened my box of journals, started reading it and selecting what I wanted to include it. So that's it. Uh, uh, right. I hope the young people will start writing about it. And Facebook is also good when you say, post something. That's a good, as long as you write something that can have some impact, later on. Be observant of what's going on around you, and you might not be right, but that is your opinion. I am not always right. When I say something, this is my own interpretation, but who can tell me that I am wrong? I mean, that is how I see things. And if you don't like it, I cannot help it. But later on, when you read what you wrote, you can get insights, and you can understand your emotion at the time when I wrote. I have to confess that when I started reading my diary, I tear some pages because I thought they should not be there. So that's how I began. I sometimes I'm so honest about my feelings about, so sometimes when I read the diary, I tear them. I take them out from the book. But there are still plenty that remains, which become the basis of my book. And my son, my youngest son, told me, Mama, I like your book, but I wish you write longer the chapters about Netherlands and Hong Kong. So I told him, those chapters about Holland and Hong Kong are just teasers, because if I write longer, that would be a very thick book, and nobody will read a thick book. So I hope in my next project, I would write a memoir or a fiction, probably. Depends on how I will present it. My 30 years experience in the Netherlands and 4 years experience in Hong Kong. So, after Beyond the Bansalan Skies, maybe there is still something that will follow.